At first, our model of the labor market said that all workers would be paid the same for working the same job. But this doesn't quite hold up, and we can see this very quickly by looking at the real world. We talked about compensating wage differentials so far, which suggests that workers are paid differently because their jobs are different. But workers themselves are also different. We talked a little bit about workers with different skill levels. Now we're going to dive into those differences in this chapter about education and the formation of human capital. Some people naturally have different skills that help them stand out. There are plenty of these skills, whether it's something directly related to the job or just related to the person's own personal life. But workers bring all of these skills with them to jobs, which can help them stand out and perform better, or just be better people to be around in the office. Not all of these skills are innate, however. Some of them can be built through education and experience. The skills that we learn in school are increasingly important. Hopefully, you will learn some skill or concept from this class or from your other classes in this program to help you be a better human resources professional. Now, workers face a choice. If you're undergoing education, that means typically you give up working. So you're sacrificing money in the short term for more money in the long term because of that education. Education is correlated with a lot of good things. People who go to college or go on to obtain postgraduate or professional degrees are more likely to work more and to earn more. Something that we're going to talk about in this chapter is how much of a result of this, these improved outcomes are a result of the education itself versus the people, their innate skills. When we talk about human capital, we're often thinking about investments people make in themselves. So things like education or specific job training so that they can earn more in the future. But not all money is created equal. $1,000 today is worth more than $1,000 5 years from now. Why is that? Because you can take that $1,000 today and not only is it yours to use right now, but you could also invest it and make it grow over time. This brings us to the idea of present value, which is going to be important when we're considering about our future income stream after undergoing education. So present value is a way to figure out how much future earnings or costs are worth in today's dollars. It helps us compare money across different points in time. So if you're thinking about going to school, you'll want to weigh the cost of tuition now against the higher earnings that you expect later. And present value gives us a way to do that. If people with more education earn more and have higher rates of employment, why doesn't everyone just go and get more education? Why do some people choose to drop out of high school to work? Or why do others stay for over 20 years through graduate school and don't start working until they're closer to 30? The idea of net present value can help us understand the choices that these different individuals make. We assume that individuals choose the amount of education that will maximize the present value of their lifetime earnings. In this case, education is only valued for its ability to improve your labor market outcomes. We're not thinking about the enjoyment of learning or anything like that. So let's think about a very pragmatic 18-year-old kid. He's about to graduate high school and faces a choice. He can graduate and start working, or can go on to college, take 4 years of college, and then after that, begin working. We're going to assume, in this case, that the only way to build human capital is to go to school. Let's say that specific employers require a college degree, and none of them are offering on-the-job training. If he starts working right away, he can get a job at, say, the lumber yard doing physical labors and earn the wage WHS, which can be represented right here. Throughout his career, he's going to earn that wage, which, is not too bad, especially when you're looking down here, 18, 22 years old, fresh out of college, decent amount of money for a kid like that to earn. But he can increase how much he earns by going to college. So the wage down here, negative H, this represents the cost of going to college. It's like the tuition that he's earning, or the earnings that he's foregoing. But then after that, once he graduates at 22, this will be the wages that he'll earn, W college. So during the first 4 years, again, he's paying the money to the school and doesn't earn anything. But then after graduating, he starts earning this higher wage. Let's say he gets an office job and compare that to the potential job he could have gotten at the lumber yard. So I know a lot of guys in high school that, as we were graduating, really gave thought to not going to college to start working right away. because there was this sort of temptation that I could start earning money now. I could start my life now rather than waiting 4 more years to do it. But once you go to college, and many of them did go to college and graduate, and they were able to start earning more once they graduated. Now, it takes some time, but eventually they surpass the total earnings of a high school grad. This figure illustrates the age earnings profile for college workers with a college degree and workers with a high school diploma. Now, it seems like college is a no-brainer, right? You've got all this higher annual earnings up here if you go to college versus if you just quit after a high school diploma. While it seems like a no-brainer, the decision is a little bit more difficult. For instance, I'm not particularly good at science, so it's not like I've become a physician anyway. But another reason why that profession was so unattractive to me was even coming out of high school, I knew that you had to go to undergrad, you had to go to medical school, you had to do residency. I knew there was a lot, maybe not the specifics, but I knew there was so much education that you're basically 30 by the time you start earning anything. The thought of delaying the start of my real life that long was just too much. So at some point, maybe it's a much more extreme point, but eventually this thought enters your decision-making process. Now, real earnings just means that your income after adjusting for inflation. It hasn't been too important in this class so far, but now that we're looking over long time periods of the worker's entire career, adjusting for inflation is much more important. So the reason why we talk about real earnings or real wages is because it reflects the true purchasing power of your wages over time. It can account for the inflation over time that slowly eats away at your earnings. So if your earnings increase, but the prices for everything go up even more, you're actually worse off than you were before. When people think about going to school, they care about how much their real earnings will increase later in life compared to their costs today. The age earnings profile is just the way that your wages change as you get older. Typically, wages are lower when you first enter the workforce and grow as you gain experience or go back for more education, tend to peak in middle age, like we talked about in previous chapters, and then they level off or maybe even decline a little bit as retirement approaches. So you might start out with lower wages at 25, but if you invest in education, your age earning profile could show a higher peak around 40 to 50. So education often increases your earnings over your lifetime, but there's this cost in the early years that we have to consider. That's where this whole decision-making process comes into play. Now, the discount rate reflects how much someone values the present over the future. So if you have a high discount rate, it means that you care a lot more about what happens today than what happens tomorrow. People with higher discount rates are less likely to invest in education because the costs are immediate. So things like tuition or foregoing the income while you're in the education program. And the benefits, the higher wages, are much farther in the future. Now, the interest rate in the economy affects your discount rate because it reflects the cost of borrowing money. So if interest rates are high, borrowing money to pay for school becomes more expensive, and people might be less willing to take that risk. If student loans come with high interest rates, the cost of education goes up, and that makes the investment less appealing for some people. Time preferences are all about how people feel about the trade-off between spending today versus saving for the future. Some people are more patient and willing to sacrifice current consumption, so spending money or earning income right now for the chance of higher reward later. Others have a higher time preference, meaning they prefer to spend or earn now rather than wait for the future payoff. So if someone has a high time preference, they might skip college and take a job right out of high school because they value the money, the independence right away. They don't want to have to wait, even though if they wait, they can receive higher wages in the future. These factors explain why people make different choices about investing in education. For some, the future rewards justify the cost, while others prefer immediate earnings or they can't afford to wait.